This is just a quick video where I'm going to be addressing a common error I even hear vegans make, which is saying that killing animals to eat in order to survive is morally justifiable. Now, I'd like to preface this video by saying that when non-vegans are arguing with us and bring up the topic of certain people needing to eat animals to survive, this is just a distraction from the real issue and shouldn't be entertained. The reality is that the person you're talking to can very easily be vegan and shouldn't be using cases of isolated tribes they'll never ever come into contact with as a prop for their argument about how the animal holocaust is justified. But this aside, there still remains an overwhelming contingent of vegans who think that what people living in areas where they need to eat animals to survive do, or what lions do, is morally justifiable. And I'm going to tell you exactly why it isn't morally justifiable with a simple analogy. And my analogy is as follows. Imagine I required a heart transplant in order to keep me alive. And in this hypothetical scenario, yours is the only heart in the world that could save me. Now let's assume you don't want to give me your heart and lose your own life in the process. The question is, would it be ethical for me to kill you in order for me to have your heart? I'm assuming your answer to this is hell no. And in that case, why on earth would it ever be ethical or justifiable to kill an animal and eat their corpse in order for that person to survive? Now, many people, including vegans, would say that we have to take sentience hierarchies into consideration here. For example, many might say, that's different because we have to take into consideration that humans have a higher level of sentience and so on than non-human animals. And so the interests of the human unfortunately outweigh the interests of the non-human animal in a survival circumstance, as speciesist as this may sound even for us vegans to admit. But if we are to do this, I think we also need to factor harm hierarchies into the equation. That is, factoring in that humans cause more harm and suffering than any other animal on this planet. Essentially, why should one comparatively harmless animal have to die in order to keep the most harmful animal in existence alive, resulting in countless other deaths and mass suffering? So I'm sure some vegan out there in the dark corners of a Discord server has drawn some nerdy little graph that proposes to calculate at what level of sentience it's justifiable for someone to take an animal's life in order to survive themselves, with perhaps insects being lower in the graph than pigs and grey apes. But this graph also must factor in harm and suffering caused by the surviving person. In any case, this is likely beside the point. Because even if we did do it on sentience levels alone, we would then have to ask the question of whether it would be ethically justifiable to murder a human with, say, the IQ of a cow in order to get their heart for a heart transplant. And again, most people's answer would be no. So then why on earth would it be okay to do it to a cow, now that the intelligence and sentience argument has gone out the window? So of course, now that I've said all this, people will just say, so what do you expect people in survival situations to do then? Just starve to death? And the answer is no. I don't expect them to do that. I expect them to just do the understandable thing that most people would do in that situation and take the life of another species in order to save themselves. But that doesn't make it ethical. It just makes it normal and perhaps even natural. But as vegans, we know more than anyone that normal and natural does not equate to ethical. You see, people get caught up in believing that just because they would do something themselves personally in that situation, that makes it ethical. The reality is that we're all very flawed and we do unethical things. Just because you would personally do something in desperation to save your life, understandably, that still doesn't make it right. After all, since when was, well, I would do it, so that makes it morally acceptable, ever good logic? Especially coming from the species that has committed the most horrific crimes in the history of this planet. So, would the ethical thing to do be to just starve to death? And the simple answer is yes. Unless one could find the corpse of an already dead animal lying around, that would be the ethical thing to do. Just as it would be the ethical thing to die without the heart you need if that one person who could save you wasn't willing to give up their life for you. But again, I understand why it would be nigh on impossible to convince a human living in a survival situation of this, which is why, as vegans, we should focus our efforts on that which is less understandable, the animal holocaust taking place all around us that sees billions of innocent beings murdered every single week for trivial taste pleasure, pizzas, ice cream and burgers. In any case, it absolutely is speciesist and unethical to say that killing animals to eat in order to survive is morally justifiable. Whether it's a lion, a human, or whoever else who is doing the killing in order to desperately stay alive themselves, there is nothing so special about their life that a non-consenting victim should have to die in order to keep them alive. And if we want to rid ourselves of speciesist appeal to nature logic, we absolutely must not be adhering to this kind of stuff as vegans. As a side note, this speciesism I see people engage in also extends to things like rewilding. That is, introducing predatory animals into an environment in order to quote-unquote naturally keep the numbers of overpopulated animals down. I'd like to ask, seeing as humans are running rampant all over the earth in their billions, would it be okay, I wonder, to introduce a few boa constrictors into a nursery playground in order to keep the numbers of humans in check? Now, if the answer is no, then why should vegans of all people even be saying that it's justifiable that carnivorous animals eat other animals in order to survive? As if the life of a deer, a zebra or a mouse is worth so much less than that of a human's. Thanks for watching this video. Please remember to hit the subscribe button if you value my content, or even if you don't, because either way it really helps us vegan YouTubers out. And if you want to support my activism, please check out my Patreon and become a supporter today. Until next time.